She looked right past you. She kept the conversation short. She didn't laugh at the thing that usually makes people laugh, and you walked away thinking she just wasn't interested. But here is what nobody tells you about that moment. The way a woman behaves when she is hiding attraction looks almost identical on the surface to the way she behaves when she feels nothing at all. Same short answers, same neutral expression, same apparent indifference. And because those two things look so similar from the outside, most men draw the wrong conclusion every single time. The reason you keep missing it is not that you are unobservant. It is that you have been taught to read interest through the signals that feel obvious, the long looks, the open smiling, the leaning in. But a woman who is genuinely attracted and emotionally guarded does not give you those signals. She gives you something else entirely, something more careful, something that only makes sense once you understand what is underneath it. There is a woman in your life right now who is doing at least 3 of the things I am about to show you, and you have probably been misreading every single one of them. By the end of this video, you will not misread them again. Before you can read any of these signals, you need to understand one thing, because without it, everything else in this video will look like coincidence. Women do not hide attraction because they are playing games. That is the assumption most men carry, and it costs them more missed connections than almost anything else. The reality is quieter and more human than that. When a woman feels drawn to someone and is not yet certain that feeling is safe, safe to show, safe to act on, safe to even fully acknowledge to herself, her emotional system does something very specific. It manages the exposure. It reduces the visible surface area of her interest until she feels more certain about what she is dealing with. Psychologists sometimes call this emotional self-regulation under social risk, the process of consciously or unconsciously suppressing outward expression of an internal state in order to avoid the consequences of premature disclosure. In plain language, she feels something and she makes herself smaller around it until she figures out what to do. This is not manipulation. It is protection. And the important thing, the thing that changes how you read every interaction that follows, is that this protection is not perfect. It leaks. The concealment itself produces a set of consistent, recognizable behaviors that are actually more specific than open interest would be. Open attraction is common. Managed attraction is precise, and precision is readable once you know the pattern. Every signal in this video comes from that same root. A woman trying to contain something she has not yet decided to show you. That is the frame. Hold it in mind as we go through each one. Watch how she handles a compliment from someone she clearly has no interest in. Then watch what she does when the compliment comes from you. This distinction, and I want you to pay close attention to it because most people completely overlook it, is one of the most reliable early indicators of concealed attraction that exists. When a woman receives a compliment from someone whose opinion carries no emotional weight for her, she handles it gracefully. She says thank you. She moves on. The interaction has no charge to it. There is nothing to manage because nothing is activated. But when a compliment comes from someone she is attracted to and hiding that attraction from, something shifts. She deflects. She redirects. She says something self-deprecating. "Oh, I look terrible today, actually." Or she pivots the conversation almost immediately after acknowledging it, as though the comment created a pressure she needed to release sideways. What you are watching in that moment is the discomfort of being seen by someone whose gaze actually matters to her. When a stranger notices something about you, it is neutral. When someone you care about notices something about you, especially when you are trying very hard not to let them know you care, it lands differently. It creates a small crisis. She has to receive the attention without revealing that it affected her. Of course, some women deflect compliments as a general habit, regardless of attraction. Context matters here. The signal is not one deflection. It is the consistent difference between how she receives attention from others versus how she receives it from you specifically. If she accepts a compliment easily from your mutual friend but redirects yours every time, that gap is where the information lives. Most men take the deflection personally. They read it as dismissal. She does not want the compliment. She does not want the attention. She does not want the interaction. And they pull back. That is exactly the wrong read. You walked into the room and started talking to someone else. You did not look her way, but she knew exactly where you were standing within 30 seconds. There is a behavior that operates almost entirely below the level of obvious observation, and it shows up most clearly in group settings. A woman concealing attraction will track the person she is drawn to through what researchers describe as ambient spatial monitoring, a sustained low visibility awareness of where someone is, who they are talking to, and when they move, without looking directly at them. She is not staring. She may not even appear to be paying attention to you at all, but she knows. She registers when you shift position. She notices when you laugh at something across the room. She clocks when you leave, even briefly. If you suddenly appear in her peripheral vision after being elsewhere for several minutes, there will often be a micro adjustment in her posture, almost imperceptible, but there. This behavior is not calculated. That is what makes it so readable once you know to look for it. Calculated behavior has a certain deliberateness to it. Peripheral monitoring feels more like gravity. She is not trying to track you. Her attention is simply drawn in your direction without her fully authorizing it. What you will notice if you start paying attention to this is that she always knows where you are in a social space before you have spoken to her. And if you change locations without announcing it, she will find you again within a few minutes. Not obviously, not in a way anyone else would clock, but she will reorient. The most common mistake men make with this signal is failing to notice it because they are too busy looking for direct eye contact. Direct eye contact is what open attraction looks like. This is what managed attraction looks like. Different thing entirely. She sent you something, a link, a meme, this made me think of that thing you mentioned. It seemed casual. It was not casual. When a woman creates low stakes reasons to make contact with someone she is concealing attraction from, she is doing something psychologically quite elegant, even if she is not conscious of it. She is building a bridge she can walk back from. Every piece of contact has what you might call a cover story, a plausible surface reason for reaching out that protects her from the exposure of the real reason. She is not reaching out to you. She is reaching out about the article. That is a very important distinction to her. What makes this a signal rather than ordinary friendly behavior is the specificity of what triggers the contact. She does not send things randomly. She sends things that connect to something you said, something she knows you care about, something that requires her to have been paying closer attention to you than casual interest would explain. The link she forwarded is not generic. It is specific to something you mentioned 6 weeks ago that she quietly filed away. The frequency matters too. One forwarded article is nothing. A pattern of low-stakes touches. This made me think of you. This reminded me of what you said. I thought you might find this interesting. Is a pattern of maintained connection under cover of practicality. Now you might be thinking, couldn't she just be friendly? And yes, sometimes the answer to that is genuinely yes. But here is the detail that separates habit from signal. Friendly people send things to multiple people. Someone concealing attraction sends things specifically to you. The reach out that goes only to you about a topic that only makes sense in relation to a conversation you had is not friendship maintenance. It is managed closeness. Before we go further, I want to briefly return to what I said at the very beginning, that there is someone in your life right now doing at least 3 of these things. We are approaching the signals most men not only miss, but actively misread. Stay with me. She remembered the name of your college roommate that you mentioned once, 8 months ago. Or she noticed your watch, or she clocked that you were quieter than usual and said nothing, but watched. Disproportionate attention to detail is one of the earliest and most consistent signs of concealed attraction, and it is almost universally misread because it tends to surface in such small, isolated moments that it does not register as a pattern in real time. When we are drawn to someone, our attention system naturally allocates more processing toward them. We remember more of what they say, we notice more of what they do. Behavioral researchers have documented this consistently. Attraction functions in part as an attention amplifier, directing cognitive resources toward the person we are drawn to in ways that feel involuntary. She is not trying to memorize details about you. She simply does because her brain is treating you as important. The tell is in the recall. She will reference something you said in passing weeks or months ago in a context where no one else would have retained it. She will notice a change in your appearance before anyone else in the room does. She will pick up on a shift in your energy, quieter than usual, distracted, slightly off, and register it without being able to explain why she noticed. Of course, some people simply have strong memories for social detail. That is real. The qualifier here is specificity. It is not that she remembers details in general. It is that the details she remembers are yours. Others come and go. You accumulate. The mistake most men make with this signal is dismissing the moments as coincidence. She happened to remember. She just noticed. And because each instance seems like it could be random, the pattern never surfaces as a pattern. Start looking at the accumulation, not the individual moment. She noticed, she retained it, she brought it back. That is not coincidence. That is attention. You had a conversation that felt like something. Then the next time you saw her, she was almost formal, almost like it hadn't happened. And you thought, did I imagine it? You did not imagine it. What you experienced after that warm moment, the sudden formality, the emotional distance, the subtle withdrawal, is one of the most painful and most commonly misread signals of concealed attraction. And because it feels so much like rejection, most men do not just misread it. They act on that misread and walk away permanently. Here is what is actually happening beneath the surface. When a moment of genuine connection occurs between two people, a conversation that runs longer than expected, a silence that neither person rushes to fill, a joke that lands at exactly the right frequency, it creates a kind of emotional exposure. For a woman who has been carefully managing how much she shows, a moment like that is a breach in the system. She revealed more than she intended. She felt more than she meant to. And when that happens, the system responds by recalibrating. Psychologists call this emotional regulation through distancing, the instinct to create space after unexpected vulnerability in order to restore a sense of control over how much of oneself is visible. The warmth was real. The withdrawal is not a reversal of it. It is a response to it. The pullback is proportional to how real the moment was. A small, pleasant exchange produces nothing. A moment of genuine resonance, one where something between you briefly stopped being managed, produces a noticeable recalibration. She gets quieter. She gets slightly formal. She might not initiate for a few days. And if you do not understand what that behavior means, you will read it as cooling interest and adjust accordingly. The detail that separates this from genuine withdrawal is what came immediately before it. Cold behavior that follows a warm moment is almost never a sign of retreating interest. It is a sign that the warm moment landed. It registered, and she needed to gather herself back in before the next encounter. One thing most men do wrong here, they mirror the distance. She pulls back, so they pull back, and then both people are waiting for the other to move, and the whole thing quietly dies from mutual caution. Do not mirror the distance. Understand it. You said something genuinely funny, the kind of thing that makes most people react immediately. She smiled, controlled, considered, a half-beat too late. There is a signal that requires a slightly more trained eye to catch, because it is not about what she does, so it is about how she does it. And the difference is subtle enough that most people never consciously register it, even when they are sitting right across from it. When a woman is actively suppressing her attraction to someone, her responses to that person sometimes become too careful. Her laugh is slightly too measured. Her reaction to something impressive or surprising is slightly too contained. She is monitoring her own output in real time, making sure nothing escapes that would give the game away, and that monitoring leaves traces. Human responses under normal social conditions have a natural variability to them, an organic timing, a spontaneous quality that does not look calibrated. When someone is actively managing those responses, that variability flattens. Reactions arrive a fraction of a second after they would naturally. Expressions land with a slight quality of being assembled rather than happening. You might notice this most clearly in moments of humor. Something you say gets a smile, a real smile, you can see that, but it is restrained in a way that feels slightly effortful, as if she is deciding how much of the reaction to let through. Compare that to how she responds to something funny in a completely low-stakes conversation with someone she has no investment in. The difference in spontaneity, if you are watching for it, is quite clear. This is not performance. That is important to understand. She is not pretending to be amused. She is genuinely amused and managing how much of that amusement she shows. The realness of the reaction and the control over the reaction are both present at the same time, and that combination is what produces the slightly off timing you will sometimes notice. She brought up completely out of nowhere that she is not interested in the guy who has been pursuing her. You did not ask. There was no obvious reason to mention it, but she mentioned it. This is the signal most people never identify at all, and it is, in many ways, the most revealing of everything we have covered. It tends to show up later in the pattern after some level of connection has been established, and it tends to feel so much like ordinary conversation that it passes completely unexamined. When a woman who is concealing attraction cannot yet bring herself to signal that attraction directly, she will sometimes route the signal through a third party, specifically through someone she is emphatically not interested in. She mentions the co-worker who has been pursuing her and how she does not see him that way at all. She references a man who asked for her number and adds, unprompted, that he is not really her type. She brings up someone who clearly likes her and what she finds unattractive about the dynamic. What she is doing at a level she may not fully consciously recognize is filing information with you. She cannot say, I am available, I am drawn to you, I have particular standards and you meet them. But she can say, I am not interested in him. And she can let the implication of that, the implicit communication about availability and standards and what does and does not appeal to her, do quiet work in the conversation. The plausible deniability is built into the structure of it. She is not flirting. She is not making a declaration. She is just talking. And if you misread it or do not respond to it, she can retreat entirely without having exposed herself at all. It is the safest possible signal she can send, which is exactly why she sends it. Most men hear this kind of comment as oversharing or as a sign she wants to talk about something unrelated and redirect the conversation. That is the wrong move. The moment she tells you, unprompted, about someone she is not interested in, she is telling you something about what she is interested in. That is the whole point of saying it. This is the signal most men not only miss, but actively dismiss as irrelevant. And it is almost never irrelevant. Every behavior we covered in this video comes from the same place. A woman who feels something real and does not yet feel safe showing it will manage that feeling carefully. And that management, precise and consistent as it is, leaves a very specific fingerprint: disproportionate recall, distance after warmth, deflected compliments, peripheral awareness, low-stakes contact, calibrated reactions, and quiet, indirect declarations of availability routed through someone she is not interested in. The unified truth underneath all of it is this: concealed attraction is not the absence of signal. It is a different kind of signal, one that requires more patience to read, but is in many ways more honest than open display, because open display can be social, it can be habit. What you see in these behaviors is specific to you. You are not guessing anymore. You have a pattern now. And here is what I want you to take from this. You do not need to overanalyze every interaction from this point forward. You do not need to run a checklist in every conversation. What you need is the frame, the understanding that guarded behavior and disinterest are not the same thing, and that the difference between them is readable once you stop expecting attraction to announce itself. Which one of these did you recognize from your own life? And looking back now, do you think you misread it at the time? Tell me in the comments. I read every one. If what we cover on this channel is useful to you, the real psychology, the specific details, the things most people never explain clearly, then subscribe. Because this is exactly what we do here, and there is a great deal more to cover. In the next video, I'm going to show you what happens when a woman decides to stop pretending, the exact moment the concealment drops, and what she does differently. That shift is even more specific than anything I showed you today, and most men miss it entirely.